Since burning, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddhas smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas.
Thank you. So I, I may have mentioned openly last class, or maybe I didn't. Our life is not like a book and starts with chapter one and it goes, and it kind of tells a story. Every single day we are confronted with different things, different circumstances, different situations, different thoughts. These things come in and out of our life, in almost like helter-skelter fashion. And so there's no way we're going to learn a linear approach to handling life. But we have to be able to handle whatever comes in the course of a day and to be able to respond to what's arising in a useful and a meaningful way. Otherwise, our Dharma is no good. It's a good story, but it doesn't relate to real life. And so we're always trying to see what the Dharma is teaching us about how to navigate the vicissitudes of life that produce certain feelings in us. The feelings, we say pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, but we've broken them down a little bit more. So actually, praise and blame is like a feeling. I feel blame. I feel praise, shame, fame, gain. All of these produce a certain kind of feeling in us. So we can't say just the facts. I don't want to deal with the feelings because it's a real phenomena in the in conditional reality. So we all. It is okay. It cut out from my ears. So we're always having to think about how, and this is where contemplative illumination comes in, how our Dharma is moving from a paper Dharma, a book Dharma, to real life Dharma. Now, in monastic training, they teach you how to be just very still and talk very softly, and hands not moving, not bringing up, just like I've got the world under such control, but it's not really like that. And so many times people cannot relate it, or they like to come in there and get a little dose of that to take back out in the world. But if we really understand the purpose of the Dharma, and it comes in that statement. I like how sometimes Buddha Master says it can be summed up in 5 words or 4 words. Okay, so it can be summed up in 6 words. All worldly Dharma is all Buddha Dharma is worldly Dharma. That's what I want to get across today. So if we do Buddha Dharma, we don't learn Buddha Dharma. Well, we do learn what it is pointing to, but it only becomes the Buddha Dharma when it is effected in our in our lives, when it is actually put into practice in our lives, then it becomes Buddha Dharma. Before that, it's just words on paper, good sounding words, maybe something that inspires, gives aspiration, and it gives hope, and even gives some mental clarity. But it is not Buddha Dharma until it is actually put into practice. That is the life activating aspect of it. And so that's why we can get confused sometimes when stuff has landed in our head and we really understand it. We like we get it, but it is not complete until we can actually walk it out. No longer, I think I know what that means. No, and I'm one who says a lot of times, I think this, I think that. I used to say I feel because I thought that was more noble than thinking. Like I could actually feel it, like those people just think it. But, but now I have to find another word. Can't really say I feel because people won't understand this because it is not an ordinary feeling. Can't say I think because something has dropped uh, off the thinking radar. So I don't know what word I'll come up with when I come up with it. I'll share it with you. But the reason why I ponder things like this is to get out of my modes of ordinary thinking so that I won't take something that is extraordinary and try to drop it into an ordinary container and give it its value through that ordinary lens. That's the thing. Like taking all of this and trying to look at it through an ordinary lens will keep it ordinary. It will keep it ordinary. And so the great effort for us is for us to like get kicked out of the pot of ordinariness, as if you can understand what I mean, to see the extraordinariness of this, and that we can't approach it from its underside and really utilize it or bring forth its magnificence. However, once we get from that place of ordinariness to the extraordinary reality of the Dharma, that becomes our ordinary. And if that becomes our ordinary, then when I say, or when the Buddha Master says, just be ordinary, he means be ordinary in the extraordinary sense. So don't get confused about the words, or think of the words in a worldly sense. Try to look from the top down and get the meanings of it. So I thought I would share with you something on receiving the Dharma today. But before I do that, I would like to do a check-in. I'd like to know how many have looked at the King of Prayers that was sent out. How many are using it to help govern their day and set their mind in a place where there can be the manifestation of the Dharmic mind in the world. Okay, so how many I'm speaking specifically of the King of Prayers, which is what we've been on for the last 3 weeks. Three classes, last 3 classes. Because does anybody not have the King of Prayers? Okay.
I'll have to get with you guys after. There's a portal where you can get that.
Okay. So if anybody doesn't know how to get out to the portal, if you'll see Busita today, she will help you. And the purpose, what do you think well, first of all, somebody who's been using them, tell me how you're using them and what's and what benefit is it? And I want specifics. I remember which hands went up. Oh, do we have them? Okay, don't I have another one of these?
We do have another one here. I can hear my voice right now on Zoom through the.
You can? Okay. All right.
Let's speak loudly. I've read through it several times and I find the whole thing very uplifting. I can't read it without feeling light is the best word for it. It's not, it's insufficient, but it's the best word I can use to point to what it brings to me each time I read it. And now I'm finding I'm focusing on the part of the prayers where it says, may I, and then there's these beautiful things of, may I embody these things. And what it's turning into is a may all being. So it's kind of becoming my dedication of merit, as well as just something that's soaking me in a beautiful energy, uplifting energy.
All right, thank you. So,
Suga, would you like yes, well, I heard it like a week ago. I have not read it, had time to read it, but at the time that I heard it and all ever since then, the concept of being surrounded at all times by victorious ones and sending offerings, many offerings. I was very perfunctory before. Now every day I think of all these wonderful things that come that I offer that I did not do before. But the feeling of the closeness of being close to all the victorious ones, and it's become, I feel not alone. I feel very surrounded and comforted by presence.
good, thank you. Somebody else? Yes.
So I always go back to what is cultivation, which is in the mind of to respect and understand that I'm in a state of impermanence, of samsara. And when you were expounding on the King of Prayers maybe a week ago, you said something about how this is how we should shape our mind that's determined to leave samsara. And so when I was going through, of course, my course Cultivation, very course, I was always like, I'm determined to leave the state of suffering. But the King of Prayers has opened up something. It's like a walking to. It's coming into a different state from the state that's understanding that it no longer wants to be in permanence. And so it's like walking through into something that's profound and bright and holy. And so I've been using the prayer to just constantly remind myself that where am I going from this state of impermanence? And this is where I'm trying to go into this state with beings, and so to have the attitude that I get to offer, because where they are is a state, and that's within, and I can touch that if I have the correct understanding and direction.
Thanks, anybody else? I saw more than 3 hands.
So my experience is probably, I'm not a big deal, but I love the experience of the prayer when Lucita read it and we prayed it together. And so what I have been doing is simply like the very first thing, usually I have a cup of coffee. I read it. I kind of want you to record it because I would rather I were hearing it than reading it. And I just find I like a couple of things that Maureen, and yes, she said about like the space that you move into. I can't articulate it very well. I just know that it feels like being in a good place, and I get up more centered than if I had just, I don't know, gotten to my day.
Mhm.
The beautiful, beautiful words. Also, I love the poetry of it.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? So thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for that sharing. It has also touched me. So I wanted to share with you how you can use this. I mean, this can take us a very long way in cultivating the right mind. Um, um, you talked or you shared how it sets you up for a certain way of approaching the world, interacting with the world, that you're not without helps, that you're not alone, you're not without support, that these heavenly beings are present. They're with us all the time. We shared how it sweetens the mind, begins to set our day, and we're in a certain mode of seeing, um, and that is 50% of it. The other 50% of it is using it as a means of uprooting our negativities. So when we first start reading it, it is like, it's nice, it's sublime, it lifts us into some state. But there are parts of us that can't go into that state, and those are the parts that we're working simultaneously on uprooting. So we're sweetening the mind on one side so that our mind naturally inclines that way. On the other side, we're allowing it to be our teacher, in a very personal way, to uproot our obscurations. For instance, I have homed in on certain ones. I can get into a state with the holy beings because they're like my friends. I know that they exist. I can turn my face towards them, and in that immaterial space, I'm connected with them. But I focused on ones that may I completely cleanse without omission every negativity and all that obscures this awakening mind. That's where I'm focusing. What I do good, I do good. But what I don't do good, that's where it's my mind is also turning towards that. So how it helped me this week is, we are going to be participating, Soma and I, in a Katina robe ceremony, and I'm usually not so interested in some of those things, but it's always good to have an opportunity to get together with other bhikkhunis, and so I agreed this year to participate in it. But there's been a part of me that has been absolutely dreading it, simply because I have no interest in it. And it's really just a ceremony where, you have your 3 months rains retreat, And that's where for 3 months of the year, the bhikkhunis and the bhikkhus step aside from, from teaching and from doing all the things they do. And they spend that time together, studying, and meditating and praying together for 3 months. And the Buddha instituted this. He was in India, and of course they have the monsoons, and so he said it's dangerous to be out. And if you've ever been over there, I mean, a flash flood can just come up out of nowhere during that rainy season. So he said it's not good for you to live in the forest and travel around during that time. So congregate in a shelter and use that time to study. And then when the monsoon's over, get on about your business. And so I understood that while it did provide a great opportunity for some to come together and study, it was not it was an edict that was given out of necessity. And since it's not safe to travel, and I don't want you to travel and perhaps die, use that time to study and strengthen your practice. And so I take it for that, but it's become something else that in my own vision is a kind of showy and then they make a robe and they present the robe. They decide who they're going to present the robe to, for outstanding service or practice, for that year, and then they sew the robe and they present the robe, and it's this kind of thing. Okay, so I was like, well, I don't have time for that, and I don't want to do it. That was my own view and opinion. But I relied upon this sister to do something for me last year or the year before last, I think, when we were ordaining one seminary and two bhikkhunis. And we have to have a quorum, a certain number. And then you have to and we're doing one at the end of this month. And you have to have a platform of 10, 5 monks, 5 nuns. And it's a whole lot of Pali, and like I don't speak a whole lot of Pali. So for me to do the ordination as the preceptor, I have to recite a lot of Pali, and I didn't want to do it and mess up the ceremony by not just being proficient in Pali. So I asked this sister what she do, because she rattles that Pali off like, I mean, it's just so beautiful. I mean, she not only rattles it off, she knows what it means to. I like to read it in English because I speak English. And so I asked her would she do it so that the ceremony would be beautiful for the bhikkhunis who were receiving the ordination. And she did that for me. So now she's asking me for a favor. She asked me, will I come and participate in the Katina robe ceremony? And I said, yes, we'll come. So that was it for me. And I'm just waiting to do it and kind of get it over with. And so, but as I've been reciting, stanzas from this King of Prayers, it's been challenging me at my my true motivation. And even if I do this, what value does it have with the mindset that I have about doing it, repaying a favor, getting it done with? And so I began to feel some conviction about that. So I was just thinking, we normally I like multicolored robes. I like multicolored robes because, for one reason, is that different orders have gotten some kind of pride around their robe. Their robe, even the color and significance of their robe. So I mix it up. So I've mismatched stuff so that there's no pride built up around the robe. And so I know how perfect she is around things like this because they matter to her. So day before yesterday, I sent her a little text and said, by the way, I'm not going to have on my all 3 robes and shirt are not going to all be the same color. And I'm going to wear a mixture of wine and um, gold, right? And I hope that's okay with you. And she responded back. She said, it's okay with me. But the Sri Lankans are going to be there, are going to think you don't know how to wear a proper robe. And they'll feel sorry for you, like you're too poor to have a set of complete robes, you know. And then so my response, well, you should train your students better, you know. And you know, because the Buddha's disciples, they retrieve robes, wraps off of dead bodies, and I mentioned that last week, with body fluids all stained, and they dyed them to cover up the stains, and you know, and that's what they wore. So they weren't all into this you know, kind of showy, noble looking proper dress that has crept into it, and that's what I was rejecting. And so what started coming to me is that you can reject it, but you should not enforce your views and your feelings on others, because for another one, it's a great inspiration. You know, it's wanting to have the best robe and be worthy of wearing that robe. You know, and so I got all of these kinds of thoughts, and it said, and what does it hurt you for one day, for just one day, to just dress in a traditional way and not be so self-absorbed in what your values and your views are? How does it one day, and that has to be a point of contention, you know? And so I was thinking about that. And as I started thinking about that, you know, my mind really, really did change around it. So I got up this morning and I dressed, I have another robe out there, and all 3 robes at least in the same color. And I do have a wine shirt. So I said, I could wear all wine, or we could wear all gold. I said, we'll wear all gold, right? Because they like browns and dark color. Why do I have to wear all gold? Why can't I wear the wine that's closer to their muted colors that they like, you know? And so I was being challenged on every front around what I considered my noble views and my noble ideas, you know. And this is what practice is. That's why he says, when you find a teacher that criticizes your faults or brings up your faults, stay with that teacher, because that's what's going to uproot the self, that sense of self, and the me and the my. We even attach around Buddhist things, around Buddhist matters, around Buddhist principles, and we create so much division that's based on I-ness. And so on one hand, we're talking about emptying into this vast, you know, ocean of emptiness, and, you know, where there's no self, and, you know, and we're doing all, and all day long, bit by bit, we're just constantly reinforcing the I and wondering why we're not making progress. Or we'll take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or we take 1 step forward and 2 steps back, because it's these little insignificant things that we think are not part of Buddha Dharma, but Buddha Dharma is worldly Dharma. It's here where we need it. You know, I mean, they're flowing in the full vastness of mind in the Buddha state, but it's we who are not in that state need these touches, and we have to bring them and put them into every thought that we have, you know, every word that we say, every action that we take. So it's these little foxes that spoil the vine. And so I was thinking in that way, and I wasn't thinking, oh, what a good girl am I. I just saw something I can do for somebody else that's gonna like, boy, that's gonna be like, boy, I'm king of the road here with my compassion, you know. So I wasn't thinking like that, but also it was not being. There was no. I was not chagrined. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel um, chastised. I felt awakened. I felt, that's it. We don't have to feel up or down about these insights when they come. Just be open for them and recognize when they're constantly trying to push in on us and let it come. We don't have to start thinking about it. Listen. We can just listen to the voice of wisdom that we have invited, that we're constantly invoking, that will come from the scent of the holy beings that surround us. If we will just be attentive and open to that. But what keeps us from that is wanting to protect our sense of self. So we are not what we do, but in another sense, we are what we do. And so as I was thinking in this way, I thought how wonderful it will be to see my sisters, to be with them. I mean, I was so opposed to it that I insisted that we stay at a hotel and we come over, like the night before to make sure all arrangements or whatever she wants to do that night. We'll go to the hotel and we'll be back at 4:30 the next morning for the day-long festivities. Because in my own mind, I had aversion to some views that they held that I'm trying not to hold or that I have rejected as not useful for me, but they may be useful for them. So we're staying at a hotel, but she's going to be surprised because when I walk in, because she's pretty sure that I'm going to wear the mismatched robes because I walk like that. That's how Panyawati rolls, and so I'm being asked to do something that balances me. You have to always be looking to see what you're being asked to surrender that allows you to find the middle way. And that's a different thing for everybody in this room around the same thing. So it doesn't matter what thing it is, we each will have a slightly different view, opinion, where we are positioned in it. And our only job is to look at where we're positioned and see what is the middle way. And as we do, our sense of self naturally begins to fall away and we'll have no preferences. There's a freedom in having no preferences. There's a bondage in having preferences. And so the very things that bring us some freedom, when they become our preference, without realizing it, we actually are in bondage. So you can see that this Dharma is very interior. It's very close to us. And it is almost impossible to separate it from every aspect of our life because we define our life by those three activities: what we think, what we say, and what we do. So I'd like to ask you to look at them again. And they speak of such beautiful and sublime things, and that's okay. But where is it asking us, you know? Let's say that someone just likes, just doing their thing. They're independent. It says, may we practice together the same aspirations and activities. If I'm one that likes to do I can't do it unless a whole group is there doing it. I find a stanza that speaks about going into the secret places and standing alone. If I'm one that starts, whenever I have something to say, the first thing I do is I, talk down about myself. I will find one that makes it unnecessary for me to set the stage with I'm insufficient. I'll find one that tells me and displays for me my sufficiency if I choose it. And if I'm one who's like too high, it brings me down. One who's too accomplished by worldly standards, it will bring me down. If it's one who's finding delight in this way, but they have such, are reaping the blessings, reaping the good fortune and the benefits of their merit is coming to fruition, or their merit has come to fruition. And they're really living the good life. Then I might say, remembering my past lives in all varieties of existence, may I now practice the Bodhisattva way. And thus, in each cycle of death, migration, and birth, may I always abandon the householder's life. This life, I'm in it. I'm in the householder's life. I'm reaping the fruit of my good karma. This is mine. No way to stop me from it. If I turn from it to this life, it'll have to manifest in a future life. Burn it up. Let it burn up. Consume it. It has been earned. It ain't even personal. It's been earned. So receive it and use it, but knowing now that it's only good for a short period of time and it becomes impermanent. Now that I have this understanding, all my future lives are not, may I abandon the householder life. You see, so we can find in here the things that balance however we're thinking. And it says, thus I am continually immersed in the speech of the Buddhas, expression that reveals an ocean of qualities in a single word. That brings life to my aspiration, my personal aspiration. I'm continually immersing myself in the speech of the Buddhas, expressions that reveal an ocean of qualities in a single word. And you'll find your aspirations here articulated. You'll be reminded. You'll be put in remembrance of what has true meaning to you. And sometimes when we're busy, we're so busy about, our dharmic work that we don't have time for the Dharma. But that brings me back to the exquisiteness and the all-encompassing fullness of even a single dharmic word. And it says, then I shall experience in one moment such vast activities of all future eons, and I will enter into all eons of the three times in but a fraction of a second. So when we're talking about entering into a state, that's what a state is like. That in the fraction of a second, one moves out of this cataracted reality. It's like a thick, it's like Vaseline. I have my healing that still needs to occur with my eyes since my eye surgery. And at some point, they had to take me off the steroids. They said it's not good. You got to come off, but the inflammation's not gone. So then they put me on something else that was thick like Vaseline. The drops are thick like Vaseline, and they'd gum up my eyes, and my eyes would stick, and it was just like so weighty. And so then they went to some other kinds of drops that were not, the viscosity wasn't like so thick, but my eyes still haven't healed. So when I went back yesterday, he said, we got a new medicine. And I go, oh, another medicine. And he said, and it's just come out. So it's a little bit pricey, but I'm real excited about it for people who have problems with healing like you do. And he said, I actually have some in my pocket. I like to try it on you in the office. And he put the drops in my eyes. And I'm going to tell you, I don't say it. Well, can you give me another word for it?
Ecstasy.
Okay, I'll use that word.
Everybody know the word?
Yeah. I felt ecstasy when he put those drops in my eyes. And like, I don't even know what that feels like, but this was beyond any kind of feeling of completeness, totality, well-being, merging, everything that you could think of in words like that. I experienced it when he put those drops in my eyes. It was like an oil base, so it was so smooth. It was so light. I don't even have the words to describe, because my eyes are in such constant pain. I don't feel my nose, don't feel my lips, don't feel my ears, but I am 100% aware of my eyes at all times because of the pain in my eyes. And when he put those drops in 2 seconds, there was no pain in my eyes. And I'm gushing and everything, and the doctors falling out laughing, him and the other. But I'm telling you that when you have an insight, it's like that, and it catapults you right out of this reality. So I'm thinking now how pleasant it will be to be with my distant sisters for this ceremony. And what could I do that everything would be pleasant for them and go well for them and inure to their happiness? And I wasn't just saying it because that's the thing you're supposed to say, but now I was really in that space. And as soon as I got in that space, I'm like, shoo, and I'm out. I'm out of this false reality, and I'm in another space of reality. And those are the moments that that's Buddha Dharma, and that's the Dharma practice. But it only comes by uprooting our preferences. It comes, and as we uproot our preferences, that's the abandoning of the self. So this week, your practice is, to look at the power of taking up this supreme knowledge that's unobstructed by differentiation. That's your practice for this week. To bring forth the power of wisdom and skill in your cultivation. So in the beginning, we love hearing about things. After that, then we start loving practicing things. But then after that, we just love being those things. So I want you to see how quickly we're moving. Can you see? Can you see how quickly we're moving from language prajna to contemplative illumination to the breakthrough of the prajna wisdom that we already possess, that's already there, awakening to it step by step, but it's in the doing that really comes to fruition. Limitless is the end of space. Likewise, limitless are living beings. Thus, limitless are karma and afflictions. May my aspirations, that which neutralizes our karma and our afflictions, may my aspirations reach, be limitless as well. So this is telling us something, if you can understand this one stanza. It says, karma and afflictions are limitless. So the only thing that can match, neutralize karmic affliction then is limitless aspiration. Yesterday or Tuesday, we talked a little bit about that, and maybe I'm going to vector for a minute from what I had planned. We talked a little bit about cause and condition, causality, and karma. And we talked about water, maybe knocking a glass of water on the paper. And if we poured more water on, there'd be more water on the paper. And so that's done. And that cause of spilling the water produced an effect. The paper's wet. And that's like when we do an act, there is an effect. And we think that the sum total of understanding on a rudimentary level, we understand that cause and effect. But on a deeper level, I'm not sure that we do. Because we talked about what would be when that water is spilled, now that effect becomes a cause. And this is where I'm picking up that discussion. Now, that wet paper is now a cause. And it's creating a condition that is now no longer related to the dry piece of paper. And what happens after this paper is wet to fix it, to make it dry again, is going to take a different set of causes. I can have some part in drying it by taking a cloth and sopping up some of the water. But it's not going to be dry. But I've cured some of the damage. But although I spilled it, it's not totally up to me for the restoration or correction of that condition that exists. It depends on some other things, and I asked for what things it could be depend on. And somebody said the temperature in the room, how quickly it dries, the humidity in that space, and how quickly it dries, or whether it can dry at all if the humidity is too high. There are conditions that will allow this drying, but I'm not the one who can implement them, because that condition that came about through my cause has now become a cause, and there will be conditions necessary to change that. And so when we think about things that we do, and we think that we either can fix everything or that we have to fix everything, it really just reinforces our sense of self. Now, this is not an elementary teaching. Keep all the teachings you had all the way up to now about this, but there's somewhere else to go. And that's where the freedom is going to ultimately be found. That's freedom for the perpetrator and freedom for the victim, so that there's no longer a perpetrator, no longer a victim. The way the universe works, the laws of the universe, depend on different factors to mitigate different circumstances. Let's say that I do something to someone, or maybe I do the same thing to two people because that's my habitual tendency. One person was raised in a certain household, that they developed certain ways of looking and understanding. Let's say it doesn't matter much. Another was raised in a different household where she's suffered, many offenses, and this is just one more to her that's just like all the others. So this one is not in that much pain over it. That's her issue. This one is in a lot of pain over it. Same thing done. Two different conditions have emerged. It wasn't all on my side, that fruit, you see. It's a matter of where it landed and what their karmic seeds have produced as well. And how many think when we do something that is untoward, that it's not just me alone, but it's also what this person has or has not done in their cultivation that makes them receive or have an inability to receive and slough off that unwholesomeness that I just did. I committed upon them. You see, so there's lots of things tied up in karma and cause and condition. Some of it, what we're trying to do is uproot our part in it. But we have to recognize that we're all in samsara for a reason. We're all here. If you didn't have the karma to be here, you would not be here. So we are all here because this is where, our karma has posited us. And so knowing that, allows us to give the right amount to a situation, to take the right amount of correction around a situation, to see how we are just impossibly tied and knotted up, and to be able to look clearly at the wrongdoing or that part of our own personal action that was not beneficial and was not useful, and see that, take it as a correction and a learning, and move on. So our ability to move on, inability to move on, I meant to say, and our inability to let others move on keeps a karma rolling that's so totally unnecessary. And I'm not saying this well the way I'm getting it this time, but I'll keep saying it and I'll keep getting better. But if I could just put that one idea in your mind, that when an offense has occurred, one needs to recognize the offense for what it is on both sides, address what needs to be addressed, and then it's over. It is over. It is done with. And whenever thought of that offense comes back, know that that's that habitual judging mind that's stuck in self, and put it away. Now, when one has that kind of clarity, there's something that comes with that clarity. And that is clarity about how one needs to govern or guide oneself as a result of that. That means maybe staying in the situation they're in because they can hold it in a different way. It may mean leaving the situation they're in because it's just decidedly not safe, or maybe we try to untie our knots, but we cannot untie them until we get into that non-discriminating space. And that's what the whole purpose of working towards non-judgment is about, so that you can have the higher view, we call it a sublime view of vast understanding. And it's that which uproots our suffering and the suffering of others. So we spend a lot of time not really being truthful with ourselves. But this Dharma asks us to be 100%. And I think that the teachings of Jesus do the very same thing. Someone was sharing with me about a conversation she was having, with a Christian friend. And she began to chuckle because she said that her friend's argument, his scriptural saying, just killed his own argument, because he was saying, well, you're just going to be lost because you're not relying on the completed work of Jesus, and then quoted a scripture. And that scripture said basically, those who do the will of my Father. So it's not just accepting his completed work. His completed work was actually letting you know that you could do the will. You don't have to rely on me in that way. Rely on what I'm saying is you can be just like me. You yourself. And so at one stage of our development, we are relying upon the masters in that way, relying on what we have recognized and can experience about their completed work, being able to sustain us, to lift us, to hoist us into a space where we have a larger view of the true nature of reality and our capacity, and that builds our confidence, but it keeps going from there. And then we need the methods to be able to be just like them. So that's why I have a picture, or we can't exactly call it a picture, but a representation of Jesus, because I came to a lot of these understandings through the Christian faith. And I remember when the Buddha took on a disciple, and he thought that his teacher, his master, was the highest and the greatest. And then he had this conversation with the Buddha, and he said, this even surpasses that. I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to walk with you. He said, you continue to support. He didn't say, no, stay there, because he was ready for this. If he hadn't been ready, he could easily have said, there's more that you need to learn, to understand, to grasp, to penetrate, to grow into. Stay there with that until that time comes, you know. But what he said was continue to support and to encourage people who are in that way. Continue to support them. And that's what I've done. So I've never denied, you know, what I learned. I've never denied what I received. I'm not ashamed. And yet, I want to know the things that he knew that allowed him to be this way in the world. And all I'm saying is that the Buddha Dharma has methods that allow that to manifest in our life. That's the only reason, you know, and I'm closing early today. That's the only reason, you know, to be a teacher in school, you still have to have your BA, and they prefer a master's, whether you're going to teach 12th grade, whether you're going to teach first grade. You yourself have to know certain things. And then you can decide whether you want to teach the children or the adults. Or you can decide, you know, whatever is one's great heart. Because it takes all of those. It takes the kindergarten teacher, the first grade teacher, the second grade teacher, the third grade teacher, and the curriculum of, you know, of that grade level. And sometimes, like when you skip a grade because you score high on the test, but you might score high on the academic test, but you don't have the emotional intelligence, you know, or something like that. And so you skip a grade, skip 2 grades, yes, but you've missed something in the totality of the development that you need. It may come in the way of socialization, you know, something that you need that allows you to be more functionally useful on that high level. And if you don't have that, or you didn't learn that particular bit, then you're not going to do as well as you could do up here, even though you know it. You didn't have that time of walking through it in actual practice. And so I say, don't be in a hurry. Look for the things that frustrate you in this practice, because right there is where you need to spend some time. Don't rush to skip over it because I know this. But tarry there in those places of frustration, knowing that there's a kind of development occurring in you in those places. Don't be in such a hurry to get to the end, because when you get to that end, something's going to be lacking. But we'd like to come up to the place that we are mature in all things with nothing lacking. And in that way, we will be truly fit to save all living beings, to enter into our great vow. There will be no living beings that I will not save. So that's your assignment for this week. Looking at our impure activities, not with an eye of hatred, but with an eye of real interest and awareness, and how we teach ourselves to neutralize and transform those tendencies, and how it works for you. Are there any questions? Anybody have anything they'd like to say? Then, as Buddha Master says, that is all. I swear I must have been Chinese in some life, because that kind of talk sure sounds familiar to me. It just really does. When I hear it in my ears, you know, I was such a touchy-feely person. If you can believe that, extremely sensitive. I could feel everything on everybody, and it all jumped on me all the time. So I was always, crying or in tears or in anguish. Everything made me cry. The good, the bad, everything. I cried over everything. Yeah, but now I can see almost anything, and I can hold it in my heart, not overcome by it. And I'm getting better every day, and you can too. And then after a while, when things happen in our life, it'll be just like water running off a duck's back. You'll just be able to handle it. That means resolve it, in the most appropriate way. But there won't be all the drama mixed up in it. And that's what brings about a certain kind of peace in our life that passes all understanding, a kind of peace that the world doesn't give us. So the world can't take it from us. Somebody close with the dedication of merit, or whatever you want to call it. We don't have to use Buddhist jargon, just whatever you want to.
We dedicate the merit of our discussion here today. All beings everywhere. May all beings have peace and happiness, the cause of peace and happiness. May I be a cause for their peace and happiness.
I tell you that our mind, you can cut me.